mouth, better add the respect. Otherwise, pressure gon' be at your neck when I burn you like. This ain't a game, my aim is to throw. I'm much higher than you, like a rocket, a drone. I'm powerful, think of a stone, throw it off in my brain and I'm bad to the bone.
Welcome everyone to another night of the Kart Rider Drift League. We continue here on Wednesday from South Korea, and Wednesday that means we have triple team matches waiting for us tonight.
Yeah, it's going to be a nice matchup tonight we have on our hands here. I mean, one of them looks like it could be one-sided.
Yeah.
You have one that looks like it's going to be kind of competitive, and then you have one that looks very competitive, right?
Yes.
So we're going to kind of get all three tiers, so to speak, today. And these are really important matches, obviously, at the end of our regular season.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Obviously, we're nearing the end. Only 2 more days here of the regular season for the team matches before we roll into the postseason. So, you know, if you're that close to getting into that 5th place for the wildcard match, or maybe even getting a better seeding, you're going to have to make it happen here in your last match. So here's overall how the season went down. We started on October 7th, and now, as you can see, we are in the last week before we move on to the postseason starting on the 18th.
Yeah, and when we move into that postseason, we will have a wildcard match that's new to this season. It's our first real season of the KDL, where a 5th place team will get another chance. Then we'll move into our regular format we had before, the double elimination bracket, and then the finals will be on December 9th against that upper bracket winner versus the lower bracket or losers finals winner, as it is often in those types of formats. Here is, of course, the prize pool. Notably, we've talked about it a few times, but just to remind everyone, we have an MVP as well as a fan race MVP, both of them taking home about $5,000.
Yeah, and you know, that's a nice little bonus for the racers who have raced the best. Obviously, the MVP is going to be selected from the tournament itself, and fan race MVP is fan votes. So after every match, the fans here have been voting for who they think is the MVP, and then whoever has the most votes by the end of the season, they will be taking away that extra bonus. So I guess in theory, one player could be taking both, and they'll get a nice, sum of chunk change. But I mean, we'll have to keep tally of that, of course, of the fan race votes all throughout the season as well. So far, I mean, we're in that last week, so most teams facing their last team match, but up to last week, we had some pretty strong showings, right?
Yeah, I mean, we did see Desperado take out Always 2-0. That was expected. I think the Live Sandbox win was one they really needed to take, but it was much closer, I think, than that scoreline will show you. It was 2-0, but some of those races were fairly close. And then you had the MIRAENSEJONG versus KWANGDONGFREECS match that did end up going to the ace match that KWANGDONG took in the end to keep their undefeated record on the table. And you know, MSJ, they came in as one of the big favorites in terms of their roster, right?
Yeah.
In terms of the super team they essentially are. But they've really been delivering, you know?
Yes.
And they're definitely looking right now like they're in pole position to take 2nd place.
Yeah, and KWANGDONGFREECS, they continued their win streak, of course, now at 6-0, so that already secures them into the upper finals, taking that red side seed, so they are secured for 1st place here in the round robin, but of course, we'll see if they can continue that lossless streak, because they've never actually done that in a full regular season so far.
Yeah, it hasn't happened yet, and they did take out Always, of course, in that last matchup there, as you can see. And then we did have some players eliminated. We did have a redemption match for solo. It's Striker, Hero, Ding, and Will, who just skirted by there to make it through. Woojun, Scald, Hong, and Squad were eliminated, sadly.
Yeah, I mean, it was a close one. Those of you who watched it, you'll remember Will actually really squeaking by across the finish line there at the end. But, of course, we'll revisit the solos later on in the season. And now taking a look at the standings so far, KWANGDONGFREECS, they're set in 1st place. The question is, will that become a 7-0, or will they always get that kind of token loss they've always had in most regular seasons so far? And then we still have quite a few teams trying to vie for a better seeding from 2nd through 5th.
Yeah, you can see the domination that MIRAENSEJONG has shown throughout a lot of their wins, they actually have only one less set differential than the Sandbox, despite having one less one less series played rather, and they're actually ahead in rounds. So if they do continue to win, even if both teams win, they'll likely pass ahead. But that is, of course, the question as those teams continue to grow their win rates. As Seongnam, ROX, and Desperado also tied at 3 and 2. So we have a very clear top team. It gets a little bit murkier though from 2 to 5th, where we will very likely have those playoff teams.
Yeah, I mean, it's looking like the story is going to be, okay, you know, 4 of you guys will duke it out. Who gets the chance to challenge, of course, KWANGDONGFREECS at the end. But well, you know, we'll revisit. I mean, it is a double elimination bracket once we go into the postseason, so upsets could happen. We'll have to keep track of that. Now, taking a look at the Fan Race MVP, we've told you guys already that these are fan votes after every match. So we take a look at the most recent matches last week. You see a Banana. Jimin actually took 2 for himself, so now he gets up there, getting close to Spear. But Spear continues to reign supreme with 3 votes total out of the 6 matches that KWANGDONGFREECS has played.
Yeah, I mean, Spear is such a fantastic player. I think definitely in the preseason is one of the best players we saw. Great sweeper, but has kind of adopted a little bit more of an all-around role since he has joined, or since you know, we moved into this season, that is to say. But Jimin, I think, also a player deserves a lot of credit. Was the item ace, now doing kind of everything, including competing in solos. So here's the fan predictions for today's matches. Very one-sided, all 3 of them, in fact.
Yeah, I mean, not surprising, right? I mean, I think you could argue, again, things like Seongnam, ROX, and KWANGDONGFREECS, it could be competitive. Liv Sandbox and Desperado could put up a fight. However, in theory, I mean, we do have a stronger team. ROX esports actually still hasn't gotten a win against the pro team so far here in the very first season of KDL. So curious to see if they can do it against the best of the best.
Yeah, I think both Seongnam, ROX versus KWANGDONG and Liv Sandbox versus Desperado could be closer than those fan predictions will have you believe, but obviously these are 2 of the most popular teams in our league. Actually, I'd say honestly these are 3 most popular teams, all of them that have the, the 92, 89. They're like our most popular 3 teams, but I could see a world in which if Seongnam, ROX prepared really well today, they could bring us to an ace, and the same of Desperado. I think that we have 3 favorites, but it's not impossible that we see a really competitive match.
No, not at all. Yeah, I would agree. I'd love to see Seongnam, ROX actually put up a much stronger fight. And I think I think that team, that brand, and then some of those racers, they've been known to kind of throw that wrench in the plans of the top dogs, right? Even if they don't take them down eventually, they will put a little bit of a wrinkle in the record, so to speak, as they actually did during the preseason as well. So would love to see if they can happen again here in the very first season of KDL.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. Otherwise, we may see the matches be very quick today. But I'm hoping to see Desperado bounce back a little bit. I think this team is one that has a lot of fan favorite players like Banana, for example, and just hasn't been able to make its mark just yet.
Well, we'll have to wait for that at the end of the night, but kicking things off, as you saw, it is going to be 2 pro teams facing off. First on stage, it will be Seongnam, ROX.
Seongnam, ROX, a very strong team. Looning, of course, being one of the big standout players with his performance at the end of our last preseason. And you have, of course, Acidfly, who did very well last season. And his team has obviously a decent amount of potential. We know that they are capable of a lot better than I think they've shown us. And look, they're very likely going to postseason, and if they can continue to grow, maybe they'll make a run through it. But they're not yet one of our top 3 teams.
No, not yet. And so far, as you mentioned, I mean, there's a reason a lot of these other pro teams were joking before the season started that, like, oh, well, ROX doesn't really count as a pro team. And they haven't proven it yet in those pro team head-to-heads, but KWANGDONGFREECS, they're returning on stage to try to finally get that elusive, lossless streak. All wins in the round robin. They have never done so as a team, as a brand, as an org, in Kartrider and now in Kartrider Drift. So we'll see if they can make history.
Yeah, looking for that undefeated season. World Cool Spear and Sungbin coming out here. Very unique roster of veterans, but they're, I'd say, more recent veterans than some of the ones we have on MSJ, for example. Gonna take a look, of course, at where we are headed here for Speed in just a moment, but before we do that, we'll take a closer look at these players. ROX, a team that I think has really, I think we talk about some of the teams like Desperado, which have popular players, right? But Seongnam ROX, I feel like reminds me of a team that is very serious about improving, and a team that, maybe the lens is actually going to meme a little bit here. Usually we see this team on camera, they're very serious, they're very much in the zone, and they're like, we can beat anybody. And I think that confidence is really important. We'll learn from you guys. I'm like, all right, guys, no, I'm saying, say something more confident. Come on.
Yeah, but I agree with you. They're usually pretty confident, and they're willing to just take the stage, especially Looning. I mean, obviously, he's coming off the back of Preseason 2, where he was the solo champion. And, you know, he's up there just always saying, I'm just racing my game, right? I'm just here. And he shows it at the average speed rank. We saw it on the chart just a second ago. He is currently in first place in terms of average finishes. So he has been racing the fastest in team matches. However, right behind him are World and Cool from KWANGDONGFREECS.
Yeah, and Spear is insane in speed mode. Like, he can actually be the front runner. He can be, you know, the speed ace, quote unquote, if he needs to be, if he ends up having the best start. But his sweeping is the best in the league, in my opinion. And it's really difficult when they get a 1-2 start, something like a 1-2-4 setup where he's in fourth. That third place racer is the only one that's trying to compete. He's just not going to make it easy for you. It's so difficult. If you give this team even a little bit of space, they will absolutely crush you.
Yeah, Spear has done several, like, 1 versus 2, 1 versus 3 sweeping, right, where he successfully just blocked off the entire opponent. And now we take a look at the track list. We did have Seongnam ROX taking speed priority off of the coin flip win, so they'll be taking us to Mexico Touring Rally first.
Yeah, they'll be heading to Village Bayside Bridge Run and then Village Boom Hill Tunnel, before we go to Brazil Circuit and then Glacier Extreme Stadium to close things out. Shanghai and Miami Drive here banned by KWANGDONGFREECS, and then Terracotta Twister and Construction Chaos banned by ROX. Two pretty tough in terms of skill ceiling tracks, I would say. Terracotta Twister, even though it's so popular, it's our most played track if you include preseasons, still one that top teams do absolutely dominate on. So do you feel like this is where you're going to struggle a little bit? Maybe take that one away. I think it's a good ban.
Absolutely. It seems like Seongnam ROX definitely doing their homework, taking away a couple of the favorites from KWANGDONGFREECS. Let's see if that works out as we get ready for round 1 in speed mode, going to Mexico Touring Rally. And the race begins with Seongnam ROX in red and KWANGDONGFREECS on blue as we race the streets of Mexico.
Really great start here so far on the side of ROX. Looning and Navi taking the top 2 spots here. Seongbin will compete for it, but this is the exact ideal spot you're looking for here. You get that 1-2 setup, but then you have a sweeper to disrupt those trying to chase. That's going to be Navi right now. Let's see if they can hold on to these top 2 spots.
Yeah, the big question is going to be, can Navi do the sweeping like you mentioned, Wolf? I mean, usually KWANGDONGFREECS, they start with the 1-2 position and then they don't let it go. So ROX, they've already done step 1. However, this isn't a short track, so can they keep hold of that all the way to the end?
That's a really good question. Not entirely sure the line that Boom was trying to take there. Ended up losing a ton of momentum. And now it's Looning and Navi, in fact, in those top 2 spots. Seongbin going to try to do some sweeping of his own to give some space to Cool here. And it's really the main win condition for ROX right now is that 1-2, and they're losing control of it very rapidly.
Yeah, and Boom's just not having a great time trying to sweep against these veterans. He's now just trying to shoot ahead. Looks like they've had some comms and say, okay, let's just trade position. You race that. Oh, line, and Boom barely inching forward for now, but Cool is right on his heels.
Yeah. They're in drafting range, and Seongbin and Cool can draft off each other here as Navi is actually going to get in the third, and this may give them a little bit more distance. So this is a 1-lap track here, Mexico Touring Rally, and it's hard to pass at this stage, so Spear and World are going to need some team gauge. I don't know if they have enough.
Yeah, it's not going to be enough. Boom even getting that final draft as well to make sure nobody can catch up. And Seongnam ROX with an excellent first choice and an excellent game plan. Put Looning in first and then just chase him all the way to the end. They take the 1-2.
Yeah, I feel like Navi, you know, is the one player who didn't get enough spotlight in that race because he did actually delay the KWANGDONGFREECS from catching up initially on the track. And even though he was ultimately kind of pushed back to 5th place, he did his job. He built enough space there, and Looning, we saw it in preseason too. If you give that guy enough track, he's just going to go all the way. He is going to take first place. He is going to just make sure that he doesn't make any mistakes on the end of the race. Sometimes we see players get greedy because like, oh, they're right on our heels. Nope, played it safe. He trusted in Navi a little bit there. Knew he had enough space. And wow, ROX taking the first race of speed here. really a surprising result, to say the least.
Yeah, and quite confidently as well, like you mentioned. So curious to see if they can continue that. So far, the picks and bans looking like it went well. Now we go to KWANGDONGFREECS' choice of Bayside Bridge Run.
Here we go, track number 2 between ROX and KWANGDONGFREECS. Seongnam ROX took the first track here. And again, a very good start. Acidfly and Navi this time will be the first to take those top 2 spots.
Yeah, not many teams have been able to take the top spots right off the bat away from KWANGDONGFREECS. However, I mean, you can definitely tell the sweeping veterancy is on the side of KWANGDONGFREECS. They're able to win out a lot of these battles, and this time it's working out in their favor as they now were able to set up for each other. Oh, look at this double team against Acidfly here on the bridge.
Yeah, such a great angle there from Spear as well, taking the cross to make it really awkward for Acidfly to avoid Seongbin there. He didn't really have any options, and now Seongbin here just going to try to take some of these narrow hitters, and there's a mistake from Acidfly, and that's your control gone. That being said, ROX still actually have this 3-4-5 right now set up with Acidfly in first. They are technically massively ahead. Seongbin might have been able to do a lot on his own, but the rest of his team is going to have to keep up.
Yeah, Spear and Cool, they'll definitely have to work together here. And, you know, if we've seen the pattern from KWANGDONGFREECS, ideally you set Cool up to pass by board while Spear and Seongbin are putting on the pressure.
Killing it.
And boom, just great blocks from the double team again on Cool on the other side as well.
Yeah, and Looning and Acidfly are so far ahead. Look at that sweeping again. Seongbin, yeah, he's ahead, but he can't catch up to them alone. They're going to need at least one more player here, and the 1-2 almost looks all said and done right now. This is massive.
Yeah, and Boom's just going full aggression right now. He's just trying to make them lose speed because otherwise they're just not going to get in draft range. And I think he knows his job is almost done. Obviously, should be one more chance as we go around the corners here. But even Seongbin still not going to be in draft range just yet. I don't think there's a chance for KWANGDONGFREECS.
I don't think so. I think this is just domination. What we're watching right now, it's going to be another 1-2 here for ROX. The preparation going to this looks very clean. And we saw Navi and Boom swapping spots there. Boom decides, okay, I'm losing a little bit of control. I'm going to sacrifice myself and push Cool back. And as that happens, Navi goes and takes the 3rd place and then goes straight back to exactly where he was sweeping before. And Boom and Navi just allow Looning and Acidfly to have such a massive lead. No matter how much team gauge you have, there is just nothing you can do. And ROX looking clean today. I mean,
it's great.
The first track was pretty dominant. The second one, I feel even more so. And we might see a 3-0 here if something doesn't change.
I mean, listen, ROX won most, if not, I mean, most of their speed mode battles. They only barely lost to Live Sandbox recently, right? So they were also a dominant team in the speed mode. They used to struggle a little bit on the item side of things, but it looks like they came very prepared. In fact, kind of targeting KWANGDONGFREECS' style and strategy in terms of needing that first 1-2 right off the bat.
Yeah. Gotta have a great start. They had 2 great starts back-to-back here as we move into Village Boom Hill Tunnel, which could be our last track of speed. We'll find out if they can do it again.
Set point for Seongnam ROX as we kick off here in Boom Hill Tunnel, and once again, ROX taking the 1-2 lead as we head into the tunnel.
And they very clearly have designated Looning and Acidfly as their runners for this one, where they want to have them at the front lines here and then have either Navi or Boom be sweeping. This time, though, a little bit of an early disruption from KWANGDONGFREECS will allow Seongbin and World to challenge here, but it's not domination again here for KWANGDONGFREECS. So Looning still occupies that 1st place spot, and Boom's going to give Seongbin a run for his money.
Yeah, a little bit too aggressive from Boom, though, and I was about to say, I mean, it gets so narrow here on this track. You try to do too much sweeping, and if you're not used to it, you're going to start bouncing back and forth. Great block from Looning, though, so he's doing his job, given to him from his teammates, still protecting that 1st place, but nobody nearby in the 2-3-4 position.
Yeah, and Cool is staying pretty far away, so there's no way Looning can actually kind of 1v2, get value there. They're going to take that Neil build there off the railing, and Looning maintains first, but as you mentioned, the rest of the team is just so far behind. It's a numbers game they can't win, and Oh, that's the end of that.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, just a great block from Cool, and World even trying to make sure he sweeps with the shortcuts, actually just completely throws chaos into the plans of Seongnam ROX, and they just cannot catch up. It will be Seongbin and Cool with the 1-2, bringing things back as a 1-2 scoreline here in the speed mode set.
Yeah, really just unfortunate for ROX there. Seongnam ROX having some issues in the early part of the track with that first big collision there from Boong, where he tried to sweep too aggressively. You pointed it out, and then that second error there from Looning just was the end of it. Then some really cool sweeping there from Kwangdong, but I think they kind of had it on lock. This was the track selection of ROX as well, so not a great feeling, but at least you know you have that buffer of those earlier 2 wins. And as we move into the next track, Brazil Circuit here, you still are on speed match point.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for Seongnam ROX, you got to rest assured that you, at the very least, will go to Glacier Extreme Stadium, which you picked as that last choice track in round 5 if it needs to go to a Hail Mary plan. So, you know, they shouldn't feel too nervous just yet, but they got to recognize it wasn't a great start. See if they can bounce back. This time going back to KWANGDONGFREECS' choice in round 4 on WKC Brazil Circuit.
Off we go here. The lead still in the hands of Seongnam ROX, as Acid Fly and Boom will have a good start here. But this track, I feel that your start matters less than any of the tracks we've seen thus far, because there are a lot of different paths you could take. It's a very open track. You could sacrifice a little bit of boost gauge to actually cut through the grass. If you have Team Nitro, you can catch up very easily. It's really just about maintaining that gap, and sweeping can be useful here in some of these choke points, but it's really about reacting to what your opponent's going to do.
Yeah, it's definitely much more about those kind of split-second decisions. You know, how do I take this shortcut? Which shortcut do I take? And I want to point out, you know, right off the bat from the race, Looning was in that middle position on the starting line. He just completely messes up KWANGDONGFREECS' ideas for cutting to get that boost gauge, and now he's catching back up on his own as well. So great start from Seongnam ROX.
Yeah, and they have this, you know, top 4 completely under control. World here is in second place at the moment, but he just doesn't have a lot of space to work with, and with 3 people around him, he can't actually take the lines he wants to take, and if he gets pushed into a tire, for example, trying to take a greedy one, that's going to be the end of this speed mode here for KWANGDONGFREECS, so they need Spear to catch up. He is forcing his way now into top 3.
Yeah, Boom with a nice draft and a boost off of it as well. Coming back now, blocks out World a bit. Oh, almost bumped Spear right into the tire, but Spear's going to recover just in time. He did lose quite a bit of speed though, so Boom now catching back up. However, KWANGDONGFREECS now in a decent position to try to disrupt for a 2-3-4 finish.
Yeah, I mean, this was looking really rough for them, but in the second lap, they've turned it around. Great recovery there from Spear. That could have actually just been the play that broke the back of Kwangdong here, but now they're in a very close position.
Yeah, Acid Fly, that bump against the wall gives the draft over to World as well, and now World in first place. It's not looking good for Seongnam ROX. Boong and Navi are so far behind. The 2-3-4 just not possible here. Can they try to catch up? Acid Fly and Looning, they're not going to be able to enter into the first place, and it's going to be a 21 to 18 point difference. KWANGDONGFREECS will be taking us to round 5.
Yeah, we are going to a 5th round, as you say, and it looked really hard for KWANGDONGFREECS there, but great recovery, and I think a little bit of over-aggression, you could say, from ROX there at the end of that first lap kind of gave away the lead that they had. If they had played a little bit more passively, played a little more reactionarily there, I think they would have been much better, but at the end of the day, it is going to be 1-3-5 here for KWANGDONGFREECS, so they will narrowly take this and bring us to 5. So we are moving to our 5th track, Glacier Extreme Stadium, and with the hairpin turns at the end of this one, anything could happen. But wow, what a statement it would be if ROX could actually defeat KWANGDONGFREECS, our top team right now in speed.
Yeah, KWANGDONGFREECS, in fact, undefeated in speed mode so far. Obviously undefeated overall in matches as well. And that, you know, that previous track, it was World who just kept everyone at bay until they caught up. We'll see if Seongnam ROX are aware of that, if they can adjust as we go to set point on Glacier Extreme Stadium. Set point round 5 in speed mode between Seongnam ROX and KWANGDONGFREECS, and for the first time KWANGDONGFREECS having the start they want with 2 racers right up at the front.
Yeah, this is the scary part when you have the top 4 dominated by KWANGDONG. Oh, look at that play from Cool there. Actually sets up the line he wants, uses his opponent's cart to actually grab some extra you know, speed there, and now 1-2 on lock here. Now, Seongnam and Cool need to come up and actually help sweep for this because they are not that far ahead just yet in this first lap, and all it takes is a really tight line here on these hairpins in just a moment for ROX to regain control.
Yeah, Seongnam's getting close, and I want to see Na'Vi just not get flustered by this, right? Because Looning, we have faith he's going to be able to catch up in one way or another, but Na'Vi's the one who has to help defend behind. Oh, no!
You caster cursed him!
An
William, you caster cursed him!
disaster! Na'Vi was doing everything he could, but Looning crashes into the wall and brings his teammate with him.
And that's basically it. I mean, there is just no way. I mean, realistically here, it is almost impossible for them to catch up now, especially when you consider World and Spear have already enough distance here on Boom that even if it was a competitive midfield, you'd be saying this one's pretty much over. They don't have that. They got 3 at the back here. It is Boom versus KWANGDONGFREECS, not ROX versus KWANGDONGFREECS right now.
And even that, it's against Sungbin, who just shoves him into the wall. Absolutely leaves him no choice. Cool, just understanding that all he has to do is block them off. I mean, there's just no chance. Looning, even if he breaks into the top 3, they're just not going to have enough points. Seongnam ROX, they were racing so well. And one crucial mistake.
It's just, now you're just competing to deny the 1, 2, 3, 4. You'll be able to get that, but you are not going to stop top 3. World Spear, Seongbin will take it. 1-2 win here with 3, 25-14, the final score. And that is just greed right there and a lack of communication. Both Looning and Na'Vi tried to take the tightest possible line on that hairpin, and then they collided because you can both do that if you come in at the same time, but if you try to actually flip that hairpin turn on that inner line, you will collide with a racer that's behind you. And sometimes if you do it right, you can do that to the racer behind you and knock them in and actually get a speed boost, but it was kind of a team kill there, an own goal, so to speak. And they both had the line set up the way they wanted to, but the communication wasn't there, and you're driving so fast, you're trying to regain that control, but that is it. KWANGDONGFREECS are probably going, that was a close one, but ultimately, like, did they win it or did ROX lose it at the end is what people will be saying about this one.
Oh, man, and, you know, as you called it, Wolf, I mean, I cast cursed him. Looning was doing so well for the entire season, and the one time he makes a mistake, it costs the entire team speed mode. And it will be 3-2 for KWANGDONGFREECS. That one's gotta hurt, but it's not over just yet. We gotta get ready for item mode.
Yeah, it is so true though that Looning was kind of the picturesque, consistent racer, the consistent runner who's going to always get it done, never make a mistake, utilize his boost sufficiently. You almost never see a mistake like that at him. You'll see players like Hero do that. You'll see Seongbin make a mistake every now and then. Like, nobody's perfect, but I thought Looning was about as close as it gets. And then you had to cast your curse, didn't you?
I mean, it was just a perfect moment. It was just a perfect moment. You got to set up those storylines. Well, now we go on to item mode, see if Seongnam ROX can bring things back. As KWANGDONGFREECS, they chose to take us to World Tour Seaplane Base right off the bat. Not surprising there. I mean, it's a track that suits them well given its very lengthy course.
Yeah, then we're going to go to Graveyard, Dark Castle, Forest, Mushroom Caves, and then we will actually go to Gondola Tour, one of the rarer tracks here at the KDL, and the Magma Cavern. Polar Halfpipe, very commonly banned. People don't like that one as much. Clock Tower Crossing, again, rarer track, and then Motherlode, Misty Falls. Hard to really say why those are banned. I guess maybe they don't want to play as much tempo-based, you know, as KWANGDONGFREECS would like to, but they took them off the board. And as you say, we are going to start things off on World Tour SFC Plane Base. We'll see if ROX can bring it back.
A tough loss in speed mode for Seongnam ROX, but they'll now have to look to get 3 on the board, an item to take us to an ace match.
Bit of an early alarm going to get picked up here. The Siren going to sweep them out. That's actually high value. And Looning here up with World right now. An Angel picked up for World, actually. So can use that defensively. And we'll eat a UFO here. Seongbin actually pulls in the head. And he's actually just going to hold that Angel for now.
I mean, he's going to be safe, right? And this is, again, a very long track, so not in any rush to try to use those items early on. Yeah, I think he's happy to just keep that. If they can cycle through other useful items, no need to rush it just yet.
Yeah, now that he's dropped back to 8th, I think he's absolutely going to hold it. It won't be much good to him alone back there. As long as you can use a Tempo Angel if you get it super early and then pick another one up later, but not going to be the case this time around. Boom in second with this Magnet. And Navi also got one. He's gonna now move into first with double shields, so that's kind of ideal. If you could pick up enough shields here, then you have someone up with you to give you some cover. But no aggressive items here, unfortunately, so I don't know how long he's going to really last up here with just 2 shields.
Yeah, so he's just trying to make sure he levels the playing field there. It looks like he just goes for a little bit of blocking at the moment. I mean, you still have another lap and a half left here on Seaplane Base, so no reason to think that you can cross the finish line with just those 2 shields.
Yeah, definitely not. World and Seongnam now in the lead here. Not gonna pop that. The spear.
Continue to get these sirens. He's
he's like, I'm an item mode sweeper as well, by the way. Just letting everyone know.
I mean, lots of great value, and now, I mean, KWANGDONGFREECS, it looks like the timing's hit as we've been taking a look at that mini-map, right? They're starting to shoot ahead. World just creating so much distance, and you can see on the map already, Seongnam, his job right now just to keep Navi at bay, and he's done a great job. I mean, World, he's alone on the map. No one can catch sight of him.
Seongnam actually knocked Navi off the map with him, too. Looning's catching up a little bit. World actually had an EMP to avoid that UFO. Now he's got some bananas, which we'll see if he can get value out of. We'll just try to use it here on this narrow line, you have to imagine, but he needs shielding here because the gap is not what it once was.
Yeah, and unfortunately for Seongnam ROX, they double up on the Wisp a bit too close together, so they're not going to get the chain reaction they want on World. A nice scanner used by Seongnam right now. Ooh, boom, just barely goes past that water balloon, and he's going to keep track of World for the time being.
Yeah, it's really going to be about what he can do. He's got that EMP for the magnet here. How quickly can he react is the question.
Yeah, I mean, does Boom know that the EMP is going to be waiting for? He's got to be aware that it's a possibility. Trying to see what he can cycle through here. Cool, trying to deny the items, and it's going to be a missile in the pocket of Boom.
Yeah, shield here as well as that EMP. EMP drop now. He's got double shields. I think this is enough here for KWANGDONGFREECS. They have the Angel as well. The distance is just so high now. 500 meters.
And that water bomb is not going to hit, nor is the barricade. It's going to go over to the main part of the course. The UFO will try to slow him down, but it's still Cool right behind him. And it will be Cool, in fact, who crosses the finish line. KWANGDONGFREECS taking the first point here in item mode.
KWANGDONGFREECS strike it back again after winning that final track of speed, but a race where it felt like they were kind of in the driver's seat the entire time, had the better items, had the ability to then know that the EMP stacked up, they could push really hard that advantage. The magnet wasn't going to be enough, the UFO's not going to be enough. And then when he does eventually get UFO later, he's just so far ahead, it doesn't matter. And he's got World to back him up there. So if you can get 2 players in those top 2 spots, one player could just eat all the aggro, and then the other player pulls ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's very much a team coordination effort here, and then making sure you're calming about your items. And then now with the scanners as well, you're able to see that. But we take a look at Spears sweeping, I believe, here. Yeah, he goes for a double siren here, and then he's going to go for the next siren as soon as he gets it right off the bat. He's just going to activate that, goes for 360, make sure Boom doesn't approach him. I mean, what a racer. If he's able to do that in item mode as well, you gotta be afraid of him.
Yeah, you gotta be afraid of him. And you know, he did that first one into perfectly hitting the shortcut jump as well, and then he's using his rear view to actually identify when they're coming next to him. Gets that second one to go off. We're moving on though to Graveyard Dark Castle. We'll see if ROX can tie things up here on our second track of item mode. Off we go here. ROX down 0-1, also have lost speed, so really important to start trying to get that momentum back now as a UFO will hit. Navi takes first place.
Yeah, Navi will see how long he can keep control of that, and more importantly, you know, on these that are 3 lappers, can he make sure that he creates room for his teammates to catch up? Right now, it's Navi, Poong, and Lens, you know, near the top 4, so they are well set up in terms of coordinating with each other.
We're going to eat that Wisp, so Navi going to pull ahead once more. Does have a shield here. See if he can grab another one. Actually not going to pick up anything there. Didn't look like. Perhaps the barricade dissuaded him.
Yeah, just going to be able to get right on by, holding on to one shield, now cycling out for another one as well, an EMP. So Navi's in okay position. However, Boong and Looning, I mean, they got to start to set something up here for his teammates. Oh, cool, going to shield right past that, but the Wisp following up as well. Nice teamwork from Seongnam ROX. They still have all 4 players near the front, and now we do see Looning dropping back just to cycle through some better items.
It's just a melee here on the top 4, though. It's just non-stop action, non-stop fighting here. It's hard to say one team has a massive advantage over the other. I say that now, with those Wisps connecting, it actually is going to be KWANGDONGFREECS who end up getting a big numbers advantage. Lens in second right now, but Spear massively ahead is going to bounce over that barricade there. And, I mean, this is really tight.
It's very close. And Lens and Boong, they're holding on to these Nitro boosts. We'll see if it comes into play. Definitely a couple options. You know, maybe if they can get something like a Magnet or not, and Cool just with some excellent blocking. Eventually, we'll have to pay for that with his position. He's only going to get a Nitrous boost for his trouble, so he'll have to cycle through. However, more importantly, Spear so far ahead once again, and that's what Cool was aiming for.
Yeah.
A nice water bomb as well to keep Seongnam ROX at bay.
And they have an Angel, they have a Wisp they could use defensively, double shield here for Spear. He doesn't have an EMP for this UFO that's going to be launched out here.
Is it enough, though? He's so far ahead. He is in vision, but can they get something like a boost? The Magnet is showing up, going
Great
to be the shield. But the Magnets, it's coming through. Double Magnet slows him down, and Boong will slingshot forward, and he will be crossing the finish line just in time for Seongnam ROX.
Didn't have an EMP for that one, and the Magnet is going to pull him back. Boong waits till the last possible second, knows the angle there, knows the timing, and ROX will tie us up here in item now. Series has been very competitive. It looked like maybe they were just going to have it. I mean, the distance was so great, like you were saying. Double shield there for Spear, but the Magnet does him in the end. Man, that's the power of Magnets. Sometimes you'll see players go just to the left or just to the right of the track so that if they get hit by something, they can sometimes still spin against the wall. The wall will actually push them forward into the finish line, but the Magnet just pulls you out of that completely.
Yeah, I mean, just great usage there at the end, and obviously getting the Magnets right when they needed it. So Seongnam ROX, you know, a little bit of Lady Luck smiling down on them as well, but cycling through was on their part. And of course, Lens on your screen, the item ace for Seongnam ROX, trying to make sure that this time he can bring them to an ace match. Right at the beginning of the season, he had tears in his eyes because he lost the item mode for them and forced Looning to go into the ace match. But this time, he's the one they need to bring them to an ace match.
Yeah. This is going to be Forest Mushroom Caves. This is KWANGDONGFREECS' track selection here. Very basic 2-star track. You know, not a lot of environment to work with here. It's going to be about timings of when you want to use those items and how far you can get ahead in the early game. Which one of these teams are going to pull ahead? Let's find out.
As you mentioned, Wolf, we're going on to a 2-star track, so none of the sirens, you know, the big bananas, things like that showing up here. It's just going to be basic racing and all back to basics in terms of coordination.
Lots of shields picked up here for our front runners. You'll see them get popped here defensively. Lens ignores that missile, that is to say. It was trying to annoy him, but he will ignore it with the shield. Looning will actually avoid that water bomb and knows he doesn't need to use his shield, so actually has stacked 2 now.
Okay, I mean, you know, as simple as it gets, that means tempo can be a huge advantage here for Seongnam ROX, and Looning's feeling quite safe. He still has another shield as well, going to use that defensively. Now a banana and a shield, but still one more chance for him to keep his lead. The Magnet finally going to help Cool catch up just a tad bit.
The really awkward thing about Cool having a Magnet and the position he's in right now is usually the Lightning player wants to be further at the back so they can use more supportive items. So I wonder how he's going to use this, because he doesn't want to just drop back to 8th. He's in first place with a Lightning. He might actually use it to try to gain some distance here. It's very rare to see that, but maybe he will, because it's basically taking up one of his item slots right now for the time being.
Yeah, absolutely. And another way they could work it is if there's a teammate right behind him, right, he can continue to eat that aggro and then just pop the Lightning as soon as he drops away from first place. So curious to see if Seongnam ROX are expecting this at all. They do have a Guardian Angel, so they should be able to avoid it as long as Na'Vi holds on to that for the longest time. Now, Cool does have a water bomb, trying to draw out some of these defensive items, but it's not going to happen just yet.
I think you're right on the money. Cool just going to try to keep pushing, and if he drops back, then he'll use it later, and that's kind of happened here.
going to just be the, Guardian Angels coming out. Na'Vi still has one in his pocket as well. So everyone from Seongnam ROX feeling quite safe. Lens and Looning up in the first two. Double shield for Looning as well. So if Lens takes that, it's not going to matter, and it's going to be a clean finish for Seongnam ROX Lens. And this is what happens when you have these simple tracks, right? It's just about the tempo. If you can cycle through those shields, you will win.
And we saw Boom with some nice sweeping there as well, playing it like it was speed there in the final moments, just blocking everybody out, furthering that lead. And I mean, sometimes it is just as simple as that. Like, it doesn't look impressive, it doesn't look that cool, but it's basically ROX just playing the safest, most boring, and most efficient way. And you see it's a 3-second gap between Lens and Spear.
Yeah, I mean, it's a massive gap, and because they knew they were quite close and they had so many wisps, so they were actually able to keep control of Pool. I think at that point they knew we don't need to worry about using our Guardian Angels. It gave time for Looning to cycle through for more shields, and then they were safe from all the other attacks. And notably, a lot of the attacks kind of being used a bit too quickly from KWANGDONGFREECS in fear of giving up the tempo.
Yeah, a lot of awkward moments too as well, like that lightning that didn't really get anything done for them. But we're going to move into Venice Gondola Tour, one of our rarer maps here, to see if ROX can bring us to the ace match. And we are off to the races here. Seongnam ROX leading item, but lost speed. If they win this, we go to the ace match here. If they lose it, we go to 5 in items. And Seongbin and Spear with a really nice advantage right now.
Yeah, so far a solid start for the KWANGDONGFREECS. In fact, Boom didn't get an item in the first cycle either, so he's just trying to play catch-up in terms of his arsenal. Does have the double rockets to boast for that, so he'll be able to provide some support from behind.
Navi, some really nice racing there. Will get to hold his shield for a little bit longer, which allows him to block right there, which is quite critical, so he can make it over that gap. Otherwise, would have fallen into the river. And he's got another shield picked up now, and he's starting to get some distance.
Yeah, Navi's feeling relatively safe here. Spear, no attacks ready. Now a Wisp coming out, but both players in front of him. Had 4 shields in front of him. He's not catching up anytime soon. Boom just trying to catch up the Siren to make sure that Spear just doesn't think about coming up. He tried to sweep against World there, but he's going to miss his target.
Yeah, unfortunately, he just lost so much momentum there that he wasn't really going to be able to have the moment that Spear had earlier on in our first item track. But still, tried his best. Navi's got a decent amount of distance here. They need to see some aggressive items here, and the rocket and this balloon is pretty hard to actually hit him with, especially when he's going through the gondola portion there. You can't really hit him with that. He's going to be able to shield these.
Oh, but the double lightning bolt, they bait out the Guardian Angel, and now they've got 2. One more still in the bank, ready to go. Now Navi has refreshed his shield. We'll see if that comes in handy. Can they bait it out? 1 Wisp takes out 1 shield. Can he cycle for another? He does, in fact, and that's going to be the lightning bolt denied. And Navi continues to race in first with another double shield.
Yeah, he just keeps grabbing these shields. That was a great turn to make sure he could hit both boxes there. And the advantage he has now is so great. I don't know if this magnet is going to be in range, to be honest. I don't think it is.
Yeah, Looney's got an EMP ready to go as well, and he dodges the barricade around the last corner, shielding the last one as well. I mean, Navi just getting double items back to back to back for all those shields, and he will be bringing us to an ace match.
We're going to an ace match, and that was just great play from Navi. He was able to identify that the gap is large enough, and that 1 shield he had when he was going over the wall there, or rather over the jump right before he got on the booster, was so important, because I think KWANGDONG thought they had him right there where they wanted him. Now, this is really insane because, remember, ROX made a huge error in that 5th track of speed where, if that didn't happen, we might actually be saying ROX just beat KWANGDONG's first team to do it. But we're still going to an ace match right now where they could very well be the first team to beat KWANGDONGFREECS. We'll see who ends up getting chosen here because
oh man,
it's a tough one for the side of KWANGDONG. They have so many players who can do it. They often or go back to World in these scenarios. And for the side of ROX, I mean, Looning's your guy. You would think, he's the one that I would expect they go with, but he has to consider who he's racing against.
Yeah, and he did make that mistake when the pressure got to him, right, on Extreme Stadium in round 5 of speed mode. So curious to see if he, takes this chance to kind of get rid of that for redemption, or if they all decide, nah, it's time for someone else. Acid Fly has had a couple of moments in the ace matches before. Now, KWANGDONGFREECS, sometimes they'll just let whoever wants to race that day go for it, and oftentimes it's Seongbin if they leave it up to that. But today, today, they want that undefeated streak. It looks like the coach really wants to consider all his options.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Spear's a bad option necessarily, but I think he's probably not the one that you want. I think any of the other racers have enough experience in ace matches where you could trust them, and it might just be track specific, to be honest, what they decide to go for.
Yeah.
And Coach getting very serious about this. The discussion you could see here on screen about who is actually going to be selected. Looks like ROX have already chosen. At least that's the impression I get from what we're seeing on camera here. But
you gotta imagine, I mean, Looning's the most probable, right? Even with the mistake earlier, I mean, he's always been your go-to guy in speed mode, in 1v1s and ace matches, even in solos. So I think you give him one more chance to try, especially because whoever plays against KWANGDONGFREECS, it's going to be a very tough one mentally.
See what the track's gonna be. Ooh. We're going to Glacier Extreme Stadium. A little bit too real. A little bit too real.
We're going back.
Is it going to be Looning? Are they going to trust him? Are they going to give him another shot?
I mean, now that it is Extreme Stadium, I mean, I don't know, in the same day, I mean, sure, some racers would say, you know what, give me that chance for redemption, but I think Looning might just say, I don't want to have to deal with that pressure, right? And give it up to another teammate of his that he's willing to trust.
I mean, I'd give him a chance, but they're not going to do it. It's actually going to be Boong, the sweeper here for the side of Seongnam ROX against Sungbin. Feels like a very big mismatch here. You know, you have to favor Sungbin going into this one, but maybe Boong, he feels like he knows this track well enough, he's practiced it enough, and he knows that Looning with that struggle earlier, maybe it's not his night. They trust him with this one. If he pulls it off, it'll be a historic moment in KDL for sure.
I mean, it'd be huge, especially just beating Sungbin in an ace match alone is a massive accomplishment. Sungbin, often known as, you know, the racer who's addicted to ace matches all throughout his history in his career with the KWANGDONGFREECS. We'll see if Boong can make that upset happen. No sweeping needed here for multiple opponents. It's just a 1v1 to the end on Glacier Extreme Stadium. Two racers and one track left for the very last match for these two pro teams. KWANGDONGFREECS one step away from an undefeated record, and Seongnam ROX trying to finally get their first win against a pro team.
Yeah, this is such a huge moment here for KWANGDONGFREECS because you win this and you've done it, you're undefeated, or you lose that. For ROX, it's so massive to get this win against the toughest team. This is the hardest point to get on the board in the standings. It's going to give you a ton of extra momentum in your potential rise to a higher seed for playoffs. As it is a very neck-and-neck race thus far, with Sungbin having a slight advantage. You see Boong a little bit faster on the nitro gauge and can draft, so see how these first hairpins go.
Yeah, and it looks like Boong so far in lap one, he just wanted to kind of gauge what Sungbin's mentality has been in terms of how he reacts to Boong's pressure. He's constantly just vying for an opening, but not quite taking it off the draft. And now as we enter lap two, curious to see if Boong starts to make his move.
Yeah, that's what we're going to have to wait and see here. Sungbin doing some nice blocking here, but
and a nice recovery from Boong as he tries to get bumped out, but he's going to shove Sungbin into the wall with his momentum. But Boong, he can't keep up the top speed.
Yeah.
He has to focus on the blocks for now.
He has to focus on the box. This is so close. And Sungbin here is actually going to look for a draft here. Look at the tight line he's taking. Boong recovers nicely there. Goes inner to outer.
Yeah, but Boong, he's just focusing on defense. I don't know if this is going to pay off, but it does for now. He gets boosted forward. And if you take a look on your screen, Sungbin currently just nearing 190 on his heartbeat rate monitor. I mean, he's always been such a cool racer, but the pressure might just be getting to him in the final moments as we enter the last hairpin turn. Sungbin loses speed on the jump, and Boong, he just might do it. He might give KWANGDONGFREECS that one loss they can never escape from, and Seongnam ROX will be finally getting their first win against a pro team, and it will be the top dogs at that.
It'll be their fourth win of the season, and as you say, against the KWANGDONGFREECS, the toughest team. They have not been able to have that undefeated season, and they will not be having it here in our first KDL. And Boong, he pulled it off. You could see how tense he was. You could see that moment. You talked about the heart rate monitor, but the celebration there as well, the team coming over and celebrating with him. You can see he's so relieved, but he handled the pressure extremely well there, and that recovery off of the attempt there to pass by Seongnam where he tried to block and then Seongnam knocked into him and he recovered and bounced in and then bounced Seongnam into the wall. That passage of play is what gave him the opportunity to be in first, and he was able to maintain, he was able to hold on to it. And that's not easy to do on Glacier Extreme Stadium because of those hairpin turns. Look how happy he is.
I mean, this is huge, right? Not only are you bringing the team the victory, it's against the Guangdong Freaks, and you just won the ace match against Seongbin, who has always individually felt confident that he can take on anyone in any team. I mean, this is a massive star in his career book for Boom.
Yeah, Seongbin getting clearly nervous there as well. And this is going to be our results. As you can see, a win for ROX. We said it when we talked about the fan prediction. I was like, yeah, it's what, 92% Kwangdong favored, but I wouldn't be shocked if we saw a close race here. Not only was it close, we got to see the upset.
Just a great win for Seongnam ROX, and I think they really needed that before going into the postseason potentially, because they've had the shadow looming over them of, well, you're not really a pro team. You guys are all kind of these hodgepodge racers who got together, and now they say, well, we're actually the only ones who took down the Guangdong Freaks. I think we absolutely deserve to be part of that crowd.
Yeah, I think the conversations about ROX Esports will change a lot after this win, and it's well-deserved. One that people will be talking about for the next few days and going into playoffs as well. You know, that 4-2 record is pretty massive, and it puts them up with Live Sandbox, right, 4-2. MSJ, who are playing in our next series, who are favored, will likely move to 4-2 as well. So, you know, it's going to be a lot about those point differentials, and we're going to be talking about that a lot when we end up finishing up today when we look at the standings.
Yeah, of course, Seongnam ROX will have to play one more team match at the end of the week, so we'll see if they can get the win there. You know, they're very likely going to go into second place and maybe a bit of a tiebreaker scenario with a couple of teams like you mentioned, but this is huge for Seongnam ROX. At the very least, they look like they're somewhat clear of that wild card match.
Yeah, very much so. Feels pretty safe for them as long as they can continue that momentum into their final match. But Guangdong Freaks, you got to feel for them, you know. They recovered well in speed. Almost, you know, I mean, basically just straight up did get a reverse sweep. It feels weird with how the final track went, but they got a reverse sweep there. Item obviously went a little bit rough, but Seongbin, they trusted him, you know, and he normally gets it done, but
he does. He
no undefeated streak, no undefeated season.
Yeah, and I love that Boom was just so aware that Seongbin will do everything he can to catch up, so he just plays for the blocking defensive style rather than just trying to race ahead. And you just see how much it mattered for Seongbin and Guangdong Freaks. We've never seen any of the Guangdong Freaks get that nervous on stage in terms of their own heart rate. So this is quite a moment here for the very first season of the KDL.
It also makes you wonder, you know, is there a vulnerability for the Kwangdong Freaks? You know, is this team just going to win again? Or maybe these teams catching up? I feel like the level of play, we talk about it every season, has improved so massively.
Yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on that. Of course, Guangdong Freaks, they still remain in first place going into the postseason. But that's not it for tonight. We still have 2 more matches. After we take a short break, next up, it's going to be FINALEe-sports in last place going up against MIRAENSEJONG. We'll be right back.